Hey, yo, what is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a great Monday. It's unfortunately no Victory Monday again for 49ers fans, but I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, they lost and you were upset because they could have won, but for some reason, it doesn't really feel like a loss in any way. I
No.
don't know. Maybe because of Trey playing yesterday. I don't know. This is our normal Mondays with Ben and Vinny, I guess. I don't know the name of this show or anything. We don't want to get copyrighted by Grant for Mondays with Vish. So we'll figure we'll figure something out for the name. But Ben, how are we today?
I'm doing well. Trey Lance played well yesterday, so I can't be mad about that at all. I'm very happy overall with the defense's performance. There's one guy in particular who I'm sure we'll talk a lot about today. His name isn't Trey Lance, but yeah, overall, can't be mad. I think the 49ers lost to a really great football team, a team that looks like they're not just headed for the playoffs, but a deep playoff run. So, this is one of the best teams in the NFC, clearly. And for the 49ers to put up that type of performance, I know some fans are maybe slightly discouraged, right? But I would say I'm pretty optimistic from what I saw, except for, everything from Kyle Shanahan. But I think play against that defense, put in a rookie, that offense, like for them to only lose this game by 7 like that, I don't think it was the worst thing in the world for the Niners. Obviously, you'd love to have the win, but I think there's some good things you can take away from this game. A lot of things you can learn, a lot of things you can build on the defensive side of the ball. And then on offense, it's all about developing Trey now. So I think, I tweeted this out. I'm sure you saw it. We talked a little bit about it. The 49ers would still be 2-3 right now if Trey were the starter week 1. And, that's kind of the thing this season, right? With Kyle, with everything that's been going on. It's that I don't know if Kyle's been a very bad play caller. I don't think it's been great by any means. I really think it's just they've completely mismanaged the quarterback situation in the worst way possible. And I don't want to say they made the wrong decision at every turn, but every time they have an opportunity to make the right decision, they don't make it. So I'm really starting to question this team's vision with Trey Lance and how bought in they are, and specifically how bought in Kyle Shanahan is. But if you do want to just talk about this game overall, like I said, yeah, great defensive performance, I think, on their part. They played really excellent. And then for offense, you got to clean up those penalties. You got to clean up those pressures from the offensive line. Those to me were the really concerning things. The mistakes the offensive line was making yesterday that were just really uncharacteristic of this team, because we're paying this offensive line to be top 5, top 10 in the league. And right now, they're not quite performing like that. And yesterday, they almost quite lost us the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, that was a tough game for the offensive line, and ultimately, I think it wasn't just penalties on that end, but also some penalties on the defensive side that ultimately cost them. And it seems like to be like a running thing with this team. Like the team that beats them the most, it feels like it's themselves, and
Yes.
giving those different kinds of advantages to other teams, and really just trying to, especially with Kyler Murray and that offense and DeAndre Hopkins. Ultimately, if you give them too many times to make moves down the field, it's not going to be really, to your advantage as a defense. And it's going to wear down on you as a defense too if you keep giving them those opportunities. And for the most part, that, like you mentioned, I thought the defense was excellent yesterday and really, keeping Kyler Murray in the pocket. I think he was a little, and they got him a little banged up too, which, they were getting pressure to him. But ultimately, when you just have DeAndre Hopkins on your team, like there's only so much you can do. And
yeah, and Rondale Moore is making those types of catches that he was making.
That was one of the best catches I've seen. So that was really good. And like, I'm not really gonna dog on the corners too much. Like, I mean, like even like those catches that DeAndre made was just the ball was just put in the right place, and not really much more you can really do about those throws. And as much crap as Dante Johnson has gotten, I think he played pretty well yesterday. He got the
He
strip,
did.
he caused the turnover yesterday, and he's really stepping in for K'Wan Williams at that slot corner, which is, if corner is the hardest position to play, slot corner is the second hardest position to play in the league.
For
So,
sure.
really big for him to step up in those moments. But yeah, overall defense, just another solid performance, and offensively, I think they missed Kittle. Obviously, I think it would have helped them a lot in the running game yesterday. A lot of people, thought they should have ran the ball a little more.
Me included.
But yeah, I think some of it has to do with them not feeling comfortable enough running without Kittle there. But
I
I
I
think
think
some
that
of it
has
too, that has something to do with it. But I think some of it, or the majority of it, should be, the play calling itself.
Yeah, that's the thing I was gonna say is that, as much as we love or as much as we're questioning their ability to run yesterday, really, um, I don't understand why you want to put your offensive line in that kind of position and your rookie quarterback in that kind of position, right? The strength of this team is the run game. That's what they're supposed to be excellent at. That's what the strength of their offensive line very clearly is. So to not lean on that as much and to really stray away from it and not even run the ball much, if at all, to me was a mistake on Kyle's part. And you got to blame him first and foremost for that. And to ask Trey Lance to drop back and pass so much with no play action when you're not setting it up. I mean, the 49ers didn't have to be in a position this game where, they're trying to come back. They're trying to come back. They're trying to come back. This game was really close the entire time. It was within striking distance. So for them not to commit more to the run, which will then lead to better play action plays, to me, it kind of just disrupts the rhythm of the entire offense. And because of that, Trey's really going to struggle if you're going to ask him to drop back and pass as much as they did without implementing any play action. But I will say this from Kyle for Kyle. I'm going to stay pretty consistent with this because I know some people might have been critical of what happened yesterday. I loved him going for it on fourth down every single
Oh,
time.
I loved it. I loved it every single time.
I'm all about it now. Do I love
Yeah.
every single play call? Maybe not. But I think for Kyle, I love that aggressiveness on his part. And I think to me, the thing moving forward that has to be encouraging, at least in that respect, is that with a guy like Trey Lance, what you really want to do is use all four downs to the most effective ability so that, if it's a third and medium, third and long, you want to make that fourth and short rather than go for the big play and then you have fourth and long, right? And that's the kind of stuff I felt like I saw Kyle doing and taking advantage of yesterday, which, I know people today are questioning whether they have confidence in Trey Lance, the coaches, the staff, the players, but honestly,
They do.
with how many that's what I was going to say. They have a ton of confidence in him because they put him out there on fourth down almost every single time. I don't think they'd be willing to do that with Jimmy Garoppolo whatsoever. And I think this game script is entirely different if Jimmy Garoppolo plays.
Yeah, and I think that gives you even more opportunities. Like with the pressure, the main thing that we saw and I think that we expected from Trey was that him being able to be elusive in the pressure and make plays with his legs. Like I didn't know how many rushing yards he had yesterday,
Like
but
89 rushing yards, 16 attempts. I mean,
16 carries, 89 rushing yards, and then it's just like Jimmy's not doing that.
no.
And you can see
And
you
Trey
could
Lance
just tell.
shouldn't have to do
Yeah,
that either. Like, that's the thing. That's the frustrating part. And that's what I wanted to get back to, Vinny,
yeah,
is that if Trey Lance is going to be so excellent as an athlete, give him a run game to work with because his strength is in the passing is as a play action passer. So for them to ask what they did of him yesterday, I just don't get it.
yeah, and I think it would have been like you mentioned, like Shanahan drafted Trey Lance because he was the most fit under center and he was used to calling play action stuff. But we didn't see a lot of him under center yesterday. Saw a lot of it under shotgun. And to be fair, I mean, and you saw a lot of that from Garoppolo too in the week before. You didn't see like a lot of him being under center. So I think I don't have a problem with him running that much, but and some of it's on like the play calling, but like Trey needs to learn how to slide. Please.
Yeah,
Please learn how to slide. They're like that fourth down that
or
he
just
tried to
just
cross the
just run out of
pylon with.
bounds, man. Just
Just
learn how to
please,
run
like,
out of bounds. You
and yeah,
know?
it's a good highlight and stuff. And like, I
Yeah.
appreciate the fight that you have, like as your quarterback. I want
Hey,
that fight.
A+
Like
effort,
I'm
right?
A+ effort, and you could saw that like because it could have easily gone out of hand, and obviously to the help of the defense for keeping them in the game. But Trey was they were getting yards down the field, and they were
Absolutely.
moving the ball, and um. But yeah, just learn how to slide, please. Don't try to run over people. You're this is your first game. We don't need this to wear down and tear you down. And the one thing about the running game that I don't think we'll get to see, maybe at the very least until next year, I would have loved to have seen what Trey Lance and Raheem Mostert would have been in this running game. Oh my goodness, this would have been one of the best running
Well,
attacks in the
hey,
whole league. I think
you,
it's
you,
just
we could have seen that, if Trey Lance had started week 1.
yeah, and I think that's just ultimately what it comes down to, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But I think Kyle Shanahan has a very tough decision in his hands to go back to
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo over Trey Lance after what he saw today. And like we mentioned before, does Garoppolo have put him in that winning position? Maybe, but maybe not. And you saw the glimpses in the potential of what this kid can be going forward. And you got to keep going with that. You got to keep getting his reps, especially, I mean, looking at their next few games here. You've got Indy at home, scheduled as a Sunday night football game. Who knows? That may be flexed.
It
I
should
don't know
be
if it will be or
flexed.
not. Then you got Halloween. You go to Chicago, potentially going up against Justin Fields. Then you have home against Arizona, home against the Rams. Then you go to Jacksonville, then Minnesota. Then you're at Seattle, which potentially they may not have Russell Wilson
Yeah.
if he's out for that long.
So not
It's
the
roughly
worst
4 to 8
stretch
weeks.
for the 49ers.
No, and it's like that's very much. I know it sounds crazy for them to maybe have this record going into that game against the Bengals, but if they can find a way to get to if they can go 6-2 over these next 8 games, which I think they can very well do, like I think they're in a really good spot going forward, and they can do that with Trey Lance. I think so. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it. And then, real quick, I kind of cut you off there. What were you about to say?
I was just gonna say, I feel like losing these 3 games, it's not a nail in the coffin in any sense.
No.
And I don't think it takes them out of the playoff race by any means. I think they're still
Like Kansas City. Kansas City's 2-3. Kansas City and the Niners have the same record. Are we worried about like is Kansas City out of the playoff hunt? No.
No,
and
but
I think they have more reason to worry than the 49ers do.
for sure. Because I think with the 49ers, this is kind of where we expected them to be. Would we have liked them to win one of these last 3 games? Sure. But I don't know if I really expected it, if I'm being quite honest. So it's for them to be here now, it's not surprising. Would fans, be happier if they beat the Seahawks? Sure. But I think you can't be mad, going into the season. I think the one thing that, like I said, keep coming back to is you just wish Trey would have started week 1, because then maybe, you get into these 3 games, and I'm not saying he wins either of those 3 games, maybe because he's better prepared. He's taken the time. He's been, he's been taking reps. He's been getting game experience. Maybe he'd look a lot better in one of those 3 games. Maybe they play a little bit better, and maybe it gives them a better chance to win. And that's the tough part, right?
Yeah, and that's hindsight. Like it's easy to say that they could have maybe won those games, but and to the credit, like going into the season, like I think I had them at 3-2 before the bye. I think they would have. I like before the season, I had them beating Arizona. But seeing how Arizona's playing, and I don't think any of us expected Arizona to be this good, especially right out the gate. You can kind of understand it now in a way, but yeah, I think that's something that you gotta really think about, because yeah, shout out to me and shout out FSU for beating.
Yeah, shout out to me.
Yeah. But yeah, I think just to give some other context too, here are some of the other 2-3 teams in the NFL right now, right? So Niners are 2-3, the Seahawks are 2-3, the Vikings are 2-3, the Washington football team is 2-3, the Eagles are 2-3, the Atlanta Falcons are 2-3, the Patriots are 2-3, the Chiefs are 2-3, and the Steelers are 2-3. So, and keep in mind, a lot of these other teams are 3-2, and that's just one game.
Yeah.
One game they win, one game they lose. It's, both all the teams are 500. So I think it's definitely not panic station for the 49ers by any means, especially given their schedule. And there's no reason to think that they can't be more successful going forward. And like you mentioned, and with our next topic here, this is kind of what I, expected.
Yeah.
I think you are going to see, and that's just not just with the quarterback play. I think some of it too has to do with understanding that there were going to be injuries on certain places on the road. And you look at that, in particular, that 3-game stretch with Pittsburgh, with Green Bay, Seattle, and Arizona. All three teams are going to give them trouble. And they're not like games that they should win. I know a few weeks ago when we were previewing the Packers game, some people thought it was going to be a blowout. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams are on the same team still. And Matt LaFleur has one of the best records as a head coach. So I think it's hard for me to say that. And maybe given the context of what they had on the offensive and defensive line, maybe there gives the advantage to the 49ers. But for them to say that's just an easy walkthrough win, I don't think that's necessarily something that you can guarantee. And then you have 2 division games back to back. Those are always tough games. And we saw last year, and even in 2019 when the Niners went 13-3, Arizona was probably the toughest team that they had to deal with. In both of those games. The Rams, they handled pretty well that year in 2019. And again, it won't be the same this year. And then with Seattle, it's always a dogfight with them. So, 2-3, I think it's a fair record. Like you mentioned, you would have liked to have seen them go 3-2. And I think they could have very well. And I think that's the promising thing too. They could easily be better than 2-3 looking at these past 3 games. If they don't play Aaron Rodgers and they don't give him that much time, maybe they win. And, maybe if things go differently in that Seattle game, maybe there's a chance there. I think that was the game where you look at, and I think this game too against Arizona, where they should have lost. I don't know if they had, but I mean, and they almost won. So I think seeing the improvements there, and I think the bye week also is coming at a really good time for this team. Early in the season, I'm like, crap, another early bye week, and that's just not going to help in any means. But
they get injured so quick.
But no, and that's what I was going to mention. I think it was a smart move by them to put Kittle on the IR for these 3 weeks,
right?
And you don't have him for this game; you have him off for your bye week, so he's only really missing 2 games. Whereas if you don't risk, you didn't risk him playing in that game yesterday, maybe he gets hurt more and he's out for a longer period of time. So I think they handled that situation really well. And, but I think ultimately, I think this is where I expected them to be heading into the bye week. To 2-3 or 3-2, they're kind of synonymous in a way. It's just one game of difference where you could have flipped.
For sure.
But this is where I kind of expected them to be.
And moving forward, they really don't have a bad strength of schedule either. I was just checking.
No.
They're about 15th in the league. They're tied for middle of the pack right now. They have about a 500 strength of schedule moving forward. So that's not bad at all for them. And like you said, this is kind of where we expected them to be. This isn't a bad spot to be in going into the bye week. And I just hope that they make the right decisions going forward with the quarterback position, most importantly. I mean, we're going to talk about that more, but I think moving forward, now that we know what this team is for sure, this is the time for Trey. And this is the time to get him that playing experience we keep saying that he desperately needs. And I think, them being here right now, if they had been 4-1 right now and Trey Lance had still started this past game and maybe he had won or lost or whatever, I wouldn't feel differently, honestly. And that's been my entire point this season, is that the position the 49ers are in right now, with their team, with their age of their team, with where they're headed and everything, they need to be playing the kid moving forward. So for them to be here at this point in the season, if took me in a time machine 5 weeks ago and told me this was what was gonna happen, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I just think the more interesting thing is going to be the rest of the season, because I feel like these first 5 weeks are fairly predictable. But from here on out, I think there's games the 49ers should certainly win, like the Colts, the Bears, the Bengals, the Vikings. But how many of those teams are they going to actually beat? That's the real question for me.
Yeah, those are definitely the games that they have to, kind of like the Eagles and the Lions game. Like, they have to, take care of business.
Well, I was gonna say, even with
games.
the Eagles and the Lions, I feel like those teams are much worse than any of those teams I just mentioned.
Yeah,
and for the 49ers, those were games that if they didn't win, then we're really, really talking about something right now. But for them to lose those 2 games and then to lose the next 3 to 3 very excellent teams who are all going to be probably in the playoff race at the end of the season, like, it's not surprising. So for these 50-50 games where it's teams like borderline playoff teams, like I said, especially these next 2 weeks, Colts and the Bears, you don't just have to beat these teams. You have to beat these teams convincingly, in my mind, to really be a true playoff type of team. Because right now, unless they're pretty much going to clean the slate with those types of teams, I really think this is about a 9-win football team. And I think that's the tough part is, with this year, even some 10-7 teams might not make the playoffs. So sitting here right now, is this where I thought the 49ers would be? Yeah, this is relatively where I thought they'd be. But overall, I still think this team is a little bit worse than even I gave them credit for. I put them at more of an 11-10 win team. I just don't think they're quite that, Vinny.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how it progresses moving forward. And I don't think it's crazy to say that they're a 9-win team, and I don't think it's at this point crazy to say that they're even an 11-win team or a 10-win team. That's not like out of this world. But like you mentioned, like they should beat the Bengals, but the Bengals are playing relatively well. I mean, they just without their kicking flukes yesterday. I mean,
and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are electric.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then the Bears are 3-2, and they have a really solid defense. So it's like, it's just those other games like against Indy and Jacksonville and Minnesota.
Atlanta,
I think still give them a little show. Atlanta, the Houston game, like those are going to be games where you have to take it. You have to take advantage of those.
Absolutely. You can't just let those scheduled wins just go away, because right now, like we're seeing in the division right now, you drop one game to Seattle, one game to Arizona, all of a sudden you're last in the division. So getting those wins against those really bad teams that the 49ers are getting rewarded with because they had such a bad schedule, you got to take full advantage of that. And I just don't think they will this year. And I really think we're gonna, like I said, these first 2 games fairly predictable. The next 3 fairly predictable. From here on out, I think things are going to get really interesting, and I think there will be some surprise upsets and surprise wins. I just don't know where they're going to come quite yet, and I just think so far things have been relatively stable for the 49ers. I just think the season's going to be pretty volatile from here on out because, quite honestly, like I said, the first 5 weeks are really, really predictable in terms of what happens.
Yeah. Yep. It'll be interesting to see how it goes in the rest of the season. One thing that may be decided for the rest of the season, does Trey Lance start the rest of the year? And I think, we've agreed on it before, and I think a lot of other people said it too after watching that game yesterday. He needs to start the rest of the year, right?
Yeah.
Like I think looking at his stat line yesterday, although it may not tell the whole story, 15 to 29, 192 yards, an interception. I think he took a couple sacks, 58.4 QBR rating, but then 16 rushes for 89 yards. So a total of 281 yards. That's a good thing. And and he wasn't really, I think he had, his receivers dropped some passes that they needed to catch, and a couple from Debo, which was a little bit surprising. There was
a little too much
Sanu.
Travis Benjamin for my liking, a little too much Sanu for my liking.
Sanu didn't play bad though. It's just there was that one that over the middle where he was wide open and like
Yeah,
yeah,
the
it was
third
wobbling.
down.
It was wobbling a little bit, but
Hits you in the
that
hands,
beats
you
that
gotta
was
catch it.
I was right in the chest. You got to catch those, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I really liked what I saw from Trey Lance yesterday, and I think it's looking at Jimmy Garoppolo in the warm up yesterday. Didn't really look like. I mean, like in the warm up when they showed that clip, didn't look like he was hurt. It didn't look like he was struggling much at all. But and Kyle Shanahan has said still that Jimmy's still the quarterback.
yeah, that's what
But
I
I
wanted to get to is you said Trey Lance. A lot of people want him to be the starter, think he should be the starter. Doesn't seem like Kyle Shanahan's quite there yet, or he's just lying. I don't really know what to think at this point because prior to the game, there was that report from Ian Rappaport that under no circumstances would Trey Lance be the starter after this game. That it was still Jimmy Garoppolo's job, and there's nothing he could have done to change that. And then after the game, Shanahan was asked about that and said, "Oh, no, that's not true at all." But then he immediately says that Jimmy Garoppolo is still a starter. So what's your story, Kyle? Did Trey Lance not play good enough? Or
they're
is
so
Ian
good at this,
Rappaport
or
right?
they're so good at doing that. They're so good at it because
I don't know how good they are now, honestly, man, because I feel like we're starting to catch up with them. Like, I feel like that, the whole narrative that the national media turned on Kyle after the whole Mac Jones situation, I'm starting to believe it more and more because they're doing absolutely nothing to defend Kyle, or at least he's not doing anything himself to protect himself. So I don't really get what Kyle's thinking at this point, and I really think, I don't want to say these next 3 to 4 weeks are the most important of Kyle's career, but I feel like it's starting to get to a breaking point with Kyle, where even the people who are huge fans of him and are really subscribed to a lot of his philosophies, a lot of those people are really starting to question Kyle as well. And I think the one thing that's been super clear that no one can argue is that his decision making has been awful.
yeah, it's definitely been something of concern. It's mainly to do with I think it's mainly like the worst thing I've seen from him coaching this year was that kicking stuff from that Seattle
Oh
game.
yeah, but what was the game plan coming into this Cardinals game? That's really what I'm asking afterwards because it's like if the game plan was to drop back and pass to Trey Lance 30 times and then let him scramble the other 15, what the hell are we doing, Kyle? I really don't understand. Like, I think the most successful play yesterday was Trey Lance scrambling, getting first downs. It's not because Kyle was doing that. So I think we just have to have some patience with this situation, but I think it's super fair to question Kyle Shanahan from here on out if he's going to refuse to start Trey Lance.
Yeah, and I think that would raise a lot of eyebrows for sure, especially given how he played yesterday and that they almost won.
Yeah.
And they could have had a chance to win that game. So yeah, I think you can tell in the play calling too, and you could just see there. You can tell the difference when Jimmy plays versus when Trey plays.
For
Yeah,
sure.
and you saw it you got to finally see a full game of it. You could see the difference in the play calling. There were a lot more throws to those sidelines. We saw that amazing grab by Ayuk had, and you saw more of those plays to the sidelines. And yeah, Trey did have a couple mistakes. The interception was
Yeah.
it was a high throw, and he had a lot of space to run ahead where he could
But
have
like
gotten
what
that
we've seen
first
with
down.
Trey this far, like so far, man, it's pretty obvious to me that you need to give him time to, I don't want to say warm up in a game, but get into the flow of the game, get into the rhythm of the
Yeah,
game. And if you don't ask him to do a lot in the first two series and just give him some easy throws, like that's what I would have rather seen. I don't know why they're going downfield as early as they were. If you are going to go downfield, I understand that I want them to push the ball downfield, but you have to pick your spots and understand situational football. That's the thing to me that I was really, I wouldn't say, I think for Trey yesterday, his situational awareness, situational football was pretty excellent for the most part across the board. It's just the person that I'm questioning right now is his head coach. I think right now his head coach situationally, the situations he's being put in I really think you're asking too much of Trey what you did yesterday. And I think moving forward, you have to simplify the game a little more and just don't ask him to push the ball downfield so early in the game, right? That's what causes these interceptions. And like we've seen from him, like, preseason, these first couple of games, that half, now this game, he starts a little slow. So why are you going to challenge him so early on? That to me is one of the things I was a little concerned about.
Yeah, and then another thing, we'll just get into this topic here that
Yeah.
that maybe has a little bit of question marks potentially is Brandon Ayuk. He got 71% of the snaps yesterday, which is like a decent amount, but Travis Benjamin also took snaps from him. And leads you to believe this whole doghouse thing, is it back? Is it something going on that we don't know? Like, he's
I guess
had
it's just
in the
a
production
sophomore slump. I
in
don't.
the production, yeah, in the production that he's had so far, that's stuff that he's produced in one game, like last year,
Yeah.
and that was his averages. But he's, um, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Something maybe a little concerning now, because he got his reps and stuff in week 3 against the Packers, um, but we didn't see as much of him. Maybe it's Lance not getting him the ball and missing him. Maybe it's just the plays aren't for him. Maybe he's not getting open. It's I don't know. There's a lot of context involved with this situation, but yeah, I would like to see Brandon Ayuk, and you think Brandon Ayuk would get a lot more targets too, especially with Kittle being out,
Yeah.
and we didn't necessarily see that yesterday.
Yeah, no, you for sure didn't, and I think moving forward, I don't know what the hell has to happen for them to get Brandon Ayuk involved. I mean, are we gonna like? I guess maybe Deebo Samuel goes down, they might seem interested in Brandon Ayuk. I don't know. At that point, they still might go to Trent Sherfield or Travis Benjamin, but this is really frustrating, Kyle. And I'm talking directly to Kyle on this one because I don't know what the hell you're doing right now, Kyle. I'm sorry, man. Like for Ayuk to only get what 3 targets yesterday.
Yeah, 4.
4. Okay, 4 targets yesterday. What are we doing? I think I would understand the situation if Jimmy Garoppolo was still the quarterback of this team. But this is what we talked about with Brandon Ayuk. We're like, oh yeah, once Trey Lance plays, man, he's gonna look awesome. They have all these complementary skill sets. He's gonna push the ball downfield. That's where Ayuk lives. He's so successful on those routes. Well, none of that's happened. And I think honestly, the thing that I'm really starting to question more than anything is not just the play calling from Kyle, but specifically the play design. Because I'm sorry, but how are you not getting Brandon Ayuk just touches where last year you would give him end arounds, jet sweeps, fly sweeps? I mean, stuff all around and behind the line of scrimmage that you're not even bothering with this year when you desperately need to do something to add to the run game. It's clear. I don't understand Kyle just completely, dismissing those end arounds that those sweeps that we saw last year entirely because I don't see Debo getting them. I don't see Kittle getting them as much. That to me was part of what made this offense so dangerous, and it's what made those playmakers so dangerous is because they were so interchangeable in that aspect. So for him to go completely away from Ayuk, they have to be really unhappy with something Ayuk is personally doing. And I wouldn't say he's on the doghouse. I would say that at least for this season, Brandon Ayuk is just on ice or something. They must be waiting for something different to happen, or they might be punishing him. I really don't know because I don't think there's a great explanation for what's going on.
Yeah, and some of it may be just to do with like you want to. I don't think there's a problem necessarily to give Debo more targets than Ayuk
No,
because Debo's been your best player
Debo's the best
offensively,
player
and
on the 49ers. Yeah, get him the ball, man.
yeah, but looking at the target distribution yesterday, Juszczyk had 4, Ayuk had 2, or Ayuk had 4, excuse me. Ross Dwelly had 2, Sanu had 3, Mitchell had 2, Charlie Werner had 1, and Travis Benjamin had 3. So he
Three
was
too many.
technically, yeah, 3. It was technically tied for second with Juszczyk. And I don't have a problem with Juszczyk getting 4, but I think you should like find that balance between, especially with no Kittle, finding that balance. Like he should be the second guy that getting the most targets, maybe 2 or 3 more, spreading that out to get the ball in his hands, because we saw the catch that he had yesterday, and we saw his ability to get the yards after the catch. Still, I think it was on that first. It was like a 2nd and 25. Like
Yeah,
he got the ball and he was able to find space and get that first down.
a hell of a catch by him.
That's good catch, and that's a good play, yards after the catch, and that's what we've seen from him in the past.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's just not consistent enough. And ultimately, I think the target breakdown, if the offense is fully healthy, I think it should go Kittle first. I think Kittle should be getting the most targets out of everyone. Then Ayuk, or then Debo, excuse me, based on the way he's playing. Maybe you flip flop him and Kittle. Like maybe Debo should be getting more targets than Kittle. I don't know, but then Ayuk should be considerably third in getting those targets. And maybe that's just the tough thing. Maybe they just have too many riches and they're trying to just feed the hot hand or anything. I don't know.
But
I know
that's
it's
the thing that I don't
not,
know about, because they are playing so much Travis Benjamin. They are playing so much Mohamed Sanu. They are playing other receivers. There are snaps there. There are passes there. But with Ayuk, you look at him, 14 targets currently this season. He had 93 last year, and that was only in 12 games or something. So through almost half of the starts he had last year, he's got like 12 or 15% of the targets. It's insane. So I don't know. Clearly something's going to have to change, or someone's mind is going to have to change, because I don't know if this is a Trey Lance thing. Again, I really think this might be a Kyle Shanahan thing, where they're either intentionally not getting him the ball, or with the way the plays are designed, they're not getting him the ball in space the way they should be. So I can't look. I think Brandon Ayuk should probably partially be at fault, but I don't even know what I would blame him for, because we don't know what's going on. Because when you ask the 49ers about it, they're like, oh yeah, whatever. Like they just rolled off. So clearly there's got to be something else going on behind the scenes that maybe we'll learn about at some point soon. Maybe we won't learn about it until next offseason or the following season. There's got to be something bigger going on with Brandon Ayuk right now.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Just a couple more topics that we got here today. Dalmador Lenore.
Yeah.
Not getting, I don't know how many snaps he had yesterday. I don't know if he had any.
I'm on that one right now.
But Emmanuel Mosley on the other corner, on one corner, I thought he played pretty well. Again, only so much you can do with.
Wow. So not a single snap from Lenore yesterday, actually.
Oh, geez. But yeah, Mosley, I thought he was all right. I thought he did pretty well. Only so much you could do against DeAndre Hopkins and that speed with Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore, who's looking like a stud already in these first few games. And then Josh Norman, I think he struggled a bit yesterday. I think some of those catches like he can't control some of the stuff against DeAndre Hopkins. Like it's even hard for Jalen Ramsey to guard some of those throws and some of those catches. But I mean, you saw how good he was in those first 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it's just not him playing. Maybe it's something with D'Amico Ryans and that he's seeing, and maybe it's who knows, honestly. And I think I obviously think he should be getting more time, because why not? You already have a revolving door at that second corner anyway. Might as well just use that to your advantage and maybe get him some reps. And of course the bigger story here maybe just be Ambry Thomas not getting suited up again. But yeah, I would like to have seen Lenore get a snap at least. Maybe not more snaps, but at least a snap yesterday.
Yeah, and I think this is really 3 straight weeks where we haven't seen much Lenore at all. I know we saw him a little bit in that Green Bay game, but really it's been 2 straight weeks where they've completely kept him out of the game plan. And I just think it's interesting that they choose Dante Johnson, for example, who they're more comfortable with in the slot over him. I don't know if I agree with it necessarily, but I will say Dante Johnson. I mean, he didn't play awful yesterday, but again, like getting back to this issue with these corners, I don't know how much more we can expect from these guys. And like you said, Josh Norman and Mosley, like they played well, but they played well enough to their skill set, and that they only have such a ceiling with the 49ers. That's always been the problem, is that their corners have a certain ceiling that you just can't get past. And when you get into certain games and certain matchups, there are guys you just can't deal with. And especially against a team like Arizona, quite honestly, I'm surprised Arizona didn't get more explosive plays off the 49ers. And when they did, they were hard plays to get. So you got to credit the defense for that.
And I think some credit needs to go to Mosley, though, too. I think he's stepping up as that cornerback one pretty well.
For sure.
Really holding his own. There was that one PBU that he had against, I think it was Hopkins.
Right. But only 3 targets yesterday, 2 catches allowed. That great game by him.
Yeah, and that's something that you can really build on. And looking forward, like we mentioned, why not get the reps for Lenore at least? And I want to see some Ambry Thomas, honestly. Like I know it may be tough to watch if he's not necessarily playing that well, because there's obviously something that he's not doing something to where he's not even getting suited up. But you want to see what this guy has. Why not put him as a kick returner or a punt returner? Because he has that speed. Why not see what he can do there? So I think I would like to potentially see not just Lenore get more snaps, but also see what this Ambry Thomas guy is all about. You drafted him as your third round pick, excuse me. That's no joke of a pick. Fred Warner was drafted in the 3rd round, right? You can get good players in the 3rd round.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I would like to see what he can bring to the table.
It's just strange that we haven't seen any of them. That's the real just strange.
Yeah, and even and
no Aaron Banks either. I mean, this entire draft class, like, not looking great so far, Niners.
Yeah, and I know with the Aaron Banks thing, like I saw yesterday, like the pick after Aaron Banks was who? Rondale Moore. So I think that's something that's a funny thing. And I know you've talked about before, Ben, Asante Samuel being on the board.
It's not even that, man. It's more just picking a guard at pick 48. At the time, it was stupid.
Yeah.
It's like stupid to me.
To that though, I think I think context matters a lot. And I think it would have been like, say it was and I think where players are drafted and where they're performing makes them maybe better than what they were actually coming out of college. If that makes
sure.
I think Rondale Moore going to Arizona, I think that's a really good fit for him.
Oh yeah.
And you talk about Asante Samuel, like he's with one of the best defensive minds in the whole NFL. And he's has one of the best teams in the league in the Chargers. And I think yes, that could have helped on the 49ers maybe, but we don't know. And like before the season starts, like we didn't know that D'Amico Ryans was going to be this good this early. So I think it's really hard to really put them at that spot. But I think where you're right in that criticism is just addressing that need in that spot in the first place and living with those.
Well, living with
the results of those.
Yeah, well, and it's also just understanding positional value in the draft, right? Understanding the fact that getting a corner in that top 50 pick is going to be much, much more valuable than getting a guard in the top 50 pick, because quite honestly, you can get a guard who's rated or considered the same level of player in the next rounds, even 40, 50 picks later. So that's my problem with what the 49ers did, is they could have drafted a guard at the end of the 3rd round and drafted Asante Samuel Jr., but instead they're like, oh, we're going to draft a guard early and then wait as long as possible to take a corner. To me, that was a mistake.
Yeah, and to that point, is it fair to say, like, if they were to draft Asante Samuel at that 2nd round and he wasn't playing as well, would you be a little less critical in the sense that, they at least addressed that need more so than drafting a guy that hasn't even suited up yet? Like,
Yeah,
is that
yeah, and
fair to
for me,
say?
it's all about process, not results, right? If you have the right process, I can't be mad at you. And for me, the right process was always getting a top 50 pick at corner. And if the 49ers had done that and it hadn't worked out, I would feel the same as I do today. It doesn't change my opinion whatsoever.
Yeah,
I
because
believe
at
in the
least they
process.
addressed it. Yeah,
Exactly.
at least it
But
was
again,
addressed.
it gets back to what I'm saying. You have to believe in process over results. And right now, I think both the results have been flawed from that draft and the process was very flawed from that draft. So that's why I'm really critical of this.
Yeah, and finally here, this is our last topic, and we kind of adjusted it a little bit before. Is it panic station for the 49ers? I don't think
Nope.
so. I think it's a bit naive to kind of overreact at this point of the year. Especially like we've mentioned before, the schedule that they have later on and what they can still build off of this performance with Trey Lance if they decide to go with him for the rest of the year, which we both think he should. And I think it's hard for Shanahan to kind of make that switch back again, but at least that's what we think he should
Yeah,
be thinking. We don't know what he's thinking exactly, but this is by no means like the 49ers are done and there's no hope. There's plenty more hope for this season, and there's still a chance that this team is a playoff team at the end of
absolutely.
the
And I
year.
think that's the great thing with the 49ers is like we said, we went over their schedule earlier, not the worst strength of schedule, some good opponents. You already kind of got two hard division opponents out of the way. There's only 4 of those games left. So listen, even if they lose all 4 of those division games, that's still a 10-win team potentially. Probably not. But I think, I would more be panicking if things that we didn't, if there were unexpected things happening, right? I think thus far, everything that we've seen from the 49ers is about where I had my expectations after them as a football team, even setting aside the record. So I don't think it's a panic spot for the 49ers at all. And for 49ers fans panicking, I would just say maybe they had a little bit too unreal expectations. And that's what I think I got so frustrated with in the offseason, just all the rhetoric around the season that stop trying to be a Super Bowl team. Just get back to the playoffs. Like just
Yeah.
accomplish some things, get a few steps forward, and actually show progress in this franchise. And that Kyle Shanahan and this regime should be the regime moving forward, and that they've made the right decisions. Right now, we're starting to question that. So if you're going to panic for any reason, it would really be Kyle Shanahan. And I think it's actually pretty fair to panic about Kyle Shanahan right now, considering everything he's done so far and every decision he's made so far, because he's really been off the mark in every single sense this year. But as far as the 49ers team, there's no need to panic at all.
No, and like we mentioned before, like we named some of the teams that are 2 and 3 right now. Kansas City being at the top of that list. Are we really worried about Kansas City at the end
No,
of the day?
but if let's push
But they have
let's push aside Kansas City for a moment, because that is a completely different example. I think just looking at the 49ers being 2 and 3 against the teams they played against, you can't be mad, like we said earlier. And like I said, Vinny, at the very beginning of this, would you like for them to be 3 and 2 right now? Sure, yeah, that would be awesome. But man,
and maybe you feel a little bit better that they're 3 and 2.
yeah, but
Maybe
how
like
much
a
more
little,
secure do you feel,
yeah,
really, if
yeah,
they beat the
exactly.
Seahawks? Does that really change much for the 49ers if they had beaten Seattle? Obviously affects their record, but I don't know how it actually changes how I
And
would
plus,
feel about this team.
yeah, plus I think too, like Russell Wilson being out opens a real big opportunity
For
for this
sure.
team to take advantage of it, because I don't know how much you believe in Geno Smith, but I think, and he played well when he went in, to give credit to him, but
Geno was moving the
can
ball.
Geno Smith really like maintain that throughout the rest of the year? And if he does, and they make the playoffs with Geno Smith, Russell Wilson should be traded,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
should get whatever they can out of him and just start Geno Smith. I'm not being like, I'm not joking here. Like I'm serious. Like, why
I
not?
hear you, man.
Russell doesn't want to play there. It doesn't feel like he wants to play there.
Oh,
Maybe, I
no.
don't know.
What tells you that? Maybe he requested a trade and listed off some teams he would go to. I don't know why
Yeah,
you
so,
think that.
like I would have. I don't want. He's like, I don't want to be traded, but
But if I
if
were to
I
be
were,
traded,
Chicago looks
and
really
Vin,
interesting.
Vinny, it's like having a girlfriend, right? A very serious girlfriend. You're like, hey, honey, I love you. Everything's going great with us. This is really awesome right now. But just so you know, if we did break up, here are the 3 girls I would ask out immediately after. But don't worry, I would take some time yeah, everything's fine with us. Don't worry at all, babe. We're fine.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what
So,
the
yeah, there's a
hell?
lot. There's a lot other teams that are in worse positions as a
Oh,
2 and 3
for sure.
team than the 49ers are right now. Like the Seattle, their quarterback's out. Pittsburgh, I know they're in a different conference, but like, what's going
Yeah.
on over there? Kansas City, I think it is a panic station more there than San Francisco, especially with they don't have as many injuries as the Niners do, and like
You know, a
not just
team that
that,
might be
but
a
like
little scared right now is Carolina. I mean, they just lost to a really bad Philly team, and they should be even better than that record that they already have, and they're 3-2 in the
yeah,
first place. So there's a lot
and
of teams where you can look across the league and you can argue like
yeah,
they should have looked better. And with the 49ers, this is about where we expected them.
yeah, and you look at and there are like top dogs in the NFC too. I mean, Tampa
For sure.
Bay, obviously we know what they're going to be. Dallas is looking incredible right now. Green Bay, that's where we expect them to be, and then the other 2 teams in the division are just 4-1
So
Rams and
that's
5-0 Cardinals.
that's at least 4 or
But
5 playoff teams right there we just named. So
yeah, and you have other teams fighting for 2 spots. So it's going to be a fun rest of the year. Definitely, this is a very much needed bye week for this 49ers team.
yes.
And that's going to do it for us today. Ben, where can they find you?
You can find me on
Your stuff?
Twitter at by Ben Meyerson, and you can just search up my name on YouTube, Ben Meyerson. We'll be back on our channel next week. Vinny and I go back and forth from our channels. Hopefully, we'll have a guest on, but we'll keep you guys updated. So just keep a lookout on Twitter for all those updates.
Yep, and you can find me on my Twitter handle, which is just right here. At Vinny Saglimbeni. You just type in my name. My YouTube channel shows up here where you guys have been watching this. Thank you for everybody that's been watching, commenting. We really appreciate it. As always, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And enjoy your bye week. We don't have to have an outrage in 49ers Twitter this week. Maybe.
No.
Probably will still be one somehow, some way, but
Yeah.
it won't be because of a game. So enjoy your week, everyone. Have a great one. And as always, go Niners. Peace.
Peace.